McGregor vs. Poirier 3 is all set for UFC 264. Every punch, kick, and knockout means so much more with the DraftKings lineup on the line. DraftKings, the official daily fantasy partner of UFC, is giving you a shot at huge cash prizes. For this weekend's fight, DraftKings is offering all customers a shot at millions of dollars in total prizes. If you haven't tried it yet, Fantasy MMA is easy to play. Just pick 6 fighters, stay under the salary cap, and pile up points for advances, takedowns, and more. There's no better way to put your MMA knowledge to the test than to compete for a shot at millions of dollars in total prizes. Plus, don't forget about basketball and hockey, where DraftKings has even more money up for grabs throughout the week. DraftKings is safe, secure, and reliable, so you can deposit and withdraw your funds at your convenience. It's the McGregor vs. Poirier rubber match. Get in on the action now. Download the DraftKings app and use promo code TBPN for your shot at millions of dollars in total prizes throughout the week. That's promo code TBPN to get a shot at millions of dollars in total prizes. Only at DraftKings. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com for details. You're listening to Spurscast, episode 619. My name is Paul Garcia, and I'm your host here on the Spurscast. Today I'll be joined by Project Spurs founder Michael DeLeon. In this episode, Mike and I will discuss Keldon Johnson joining Team USA for their exhibition games, a trade rumor, and analyze some of the projected returning starters for the Spurs. Let's go to get started. Mike, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. It's summer, so I feel good about that. Got vacation coming up pretty soon, so I'm pretty excited. Hopefully the rain will stop, though.
Nice, yeah, and for me, it's been nice, just to be off as well, summer break here. But as far as following Team USA and just the international, I really wasn't going to watch too much of it. But now that Keldon Johnson's been promoted to the Team USA for their exhibition games, it looks like I have something on my schedule this coming week to keep an eye on those games to monitor how Keldon does with Team USA. So let's first begin there, Mike, with the latest news. So on Friday, it was announced that Keldon Johnson will be promoted along with Darius Garland from the Cavs and Sadiq Bey from the Pistons. The three of them who are on the select team, they're going to be promoted to Team USA for the exhibition games, and the reason for that is because some of the Team USA players who are currently in the NBA Finals. That's Devin Booker, Drew Holiday, and Chris Middleton. So again, they're not on Team USA for the Olympics, but right now they're just going to be there with them for their exhibition games that they have this coming week because they have 5 of them coming up. So Team USA does play Saturday versus Nigeria, then Monday versus Australia, Tuesday versus Argentina, Friday again versus Australia, and then Sunday versus Spain. So, Mike, what do you think about this news that Keldon, at least is going to get a chance here with Team USA to play in some of these exhibition games?
Yeah, that definitely changes things for me, at least, what I'll be looking for and hoping to see. Now, I wasn't as interested in it as I am now, but now I can just see Keldon, and obviously he's kind of made a name for himself. He stood out because there's actually some pretty talented players on that select team. I mean, aside from the ones that, that we talked about, Miles Bridges is there as well, Tyler Hero. There's a lot of very talented players that are on that team, and they could have named, any number. But for him to be along that list of players is saying something for sure. So I'll be interested to see kind of where he's at now compared to, where he left off at the end of the season.
Mm-hmm. And for me, it's kind of like a copycat answer of last week, what I said, when they first announced that he was at least going to be on the select team. It's just that, I really want to see what position, Coach Pop uses him now that he's going to be on this team. Now, again, I don't think that he's going to get a lot of playing time, unless it's fourth quarter and Team USA has a pretty good lead on a team, or if maybe since, some of these are back-to-backs, maybe, they do rest some of their main players on Team USA. So I really feel like the minutes are going to go first to the guys that are on the national team already. And then, if there's a big comfortable margin of a lead, then I think Coach Pop will put in Keldon and some of these younger players. And so, yeah, like I said, if Keldon does get minutes, and when he does, I do want to see where does Coach Pop place him. Does he put him at the 4 like he does with the Spurs, or does he put him like at a 2 or a 3 because on that team his 6'6" height is going to be a little bit different with the different teammates he has compared to San Antonio. So that's kind of what I'm interested to see is what he does when he's out on the court and what positions Coach Pop puts him in with different teammates now that he's not on on the Spurs for this coming week. Instead, he's going to be playing with Team USA. So yeah, that's really interesting for Keldon and a good opportunity for his development. As he's only going to be entering his third year here in the NBA. All right, Mike, our other news, it's more so a rumor. There's a Derrick White and Dejounte Murray trade rumor going around. Per Zach Harper of The Athletic, in his latest mock draft, he wrote about each team, and he basically talked about first, who they should take in their draft in terms of the mock, and then he asked, he had a question was, is there going to be a trade possible? And then for the Spurs, he added this, and I'll read fully what he wrote. He said, while it seems unlikely the Spurs would move their pick, keep an eye on them being active with the trade machine around the draft. The Spurs have to figure out where they want to be as a franchise and what their plan is moving forward. They're kind of stuck in the middle right now. Murray and Derrick White could both be gettable, according to league sources. So then on Friday, when this came out, it was a lot of, just a lot of articles, aggregation where it was just saying gettable, Derrick White, Dejounte Murray gettable. I even saw Dejante trending, not on the full, top United States trending Twitter, but I did see his name trending in the NBA section of Twitter. So, this is obviously getting a lot of people riled up with the comments and things like that. So, and it's kind of cool to see that a lot of other fan bases do want these players. I saw Dejante, as Murray mentioned, by a lot of teams, Lakers fans and different other teams that were like, oh, if Dejante's available, they should try to go get him. So, what are your thoughts on this rumor that came out?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. It's something I normally would dismiss, but I know Zach pretty well, and I know that he's pretty serious about making sure that his sources are pretty reliable. And so it's interesting. The only thing is, they just extended both of these players, so you would think, that's the decision they made on the future. So, it's interesting. It's one that we've talked about a lot, like on Twitter this weekend. I just think it would be. Some of the things that have been proposed have been a little crazy, for different picks and things like that. I'm just like, I don't think you get enough value back in a pick if you trade. Dejounte, for one, Dejante, because he's become a leader, and aside from replacing what he does on the floor, but replacing that part of it, now that the future is kind of uncertain, we don't know what's going to happen with the DeRozan. Obviously, Aldridge isn't around anymore, so you kind of need a leader, and so that'd be hard. And then Derrick White just didn't get a chance to show a lot this year because of all of his injuries and with everything else going on. But obviously, they see enough in him to commit to him long term. So yeah, but then at the other side to me is thinking they have so many guards, and it's like you kind of wonder if they're gonna have to make a hard decision about some of these guys at some point in the future. So, I mean, it's just interesting. I don't think it'll happen unless they are able to move to a spot that's kind of like fail-safe. At this point, they'd have to bring in somebody that is really, you expect to make an immediate impact, and I don't know if they'd be, that kind of package would be available right now.
Yeah, and so my thoughts is kind of goes back to last week too when I talked to Colin. We had a question about who's untradeable, who's not, who's untradeable and who's very tradable right now. And me and Colin were basically like, this almost like it feels like the entire roster. If the right package came along for a certain player or maybe a pick, they can move any of these players because again, there's no actual all-star right now on this team where even the young players, they're all developing players, and we don't know for sure that we can't say within 2 years this player is going to be an all-star. We don't see that trajectory right now from all these players on the roster. So yeah, I just feel like that kind of makes sense. And then what you said there with the contracts, they're both very team friendly, not team friendly, but the contracts are very good to be tradable. It was like 14, 15 million in that range for both these players. So yeah, it's definitely there. And then you see the value that a lot of like I said earlier, a lot of fan bases would like those players on their team. And so yeah, so we do see that the Spurs you mentioned here, and you're right. They have to figure out kind of what Zach wrote there was like what are they? They're almost like stuck here where like they're gonna, yes, they can see where these players develop into, but again, there's no right now there's no path where it looks like these players are headed to like an all NBA level where you can build your franchise around a player. So that's why it was very interesting that last week Colin and I discussed Ben Simmons because, in a trade scenario, just because Ben's already like that made all-star for you, and then you can start building around him. So yeah, it's just interesting to see, and I think that this because of where we don't know exactly where this franchise is going, this coming off season, we could see multiple players' names being mentioned, in different trade rumors and things like that. So yeah, it wasn't too surprising to see that, and like I said, I think almost everyone is probably able to, if the right deal came along, I think the Spurs could look at making a trade for any of these players just because there's no actual all-star currently on the roster. All right, so now, Mark, our last topic here. It's not really a topic; it's more so we're just going to do a little discussion here. As Spurscast listeners know, we've been mentioning this new site we've been working with called Profit X. Especially they're really good about providing salary projections for players' contracts. So that's what we've been discussing the last 2 or 3 weeks here on Project Spurs. And so we're gonna do today is we're going to just take a look at their different AI models and see some different things that their site features. And then what I really want to do is focus on the starters for the Spurs, the players that played last year that are returning for sure. We think as long as the trade doesn't happen here. So those players we're going to focus on in our discussion today. Spurscast listeners are Dejounte Murray, Derrick White, Keldon Johnson, and Jacka Pearl. And again, I didn't include DeRozan because he is a free agent. We don't know if he's returning to the team. I also didn't include Lonnie Walker IV because I know that he was a starter for a little bit of part of last season. But again, when the team was fully healthy, it was Derrick White who was a starter at the 2 there. So before we begin this discussion, we do want to say that Profit X is a dynamic financial and performance index powered by artificial intelligence with front office optics displaying 17 visual and time series models for 480 plus NBA athletes. The Athledex models historical, dynamic, and future performance data to monitor and project insights on contracts, performance, injuries, team fit, development, and potential. You can follow them on Twitter at ProfitXAI and also on Instagram. So let's begin, Mike, with some of these different projections that ProfitX features. So let's begin with Dejounte Murray. So according to their their models, they do say that some of his best combinations on the court are playing alongside Calden Johnson, Jacka Pearl, and Luka Samanic. According to their model, he did play like a starter this past season with the production he brought to the Spurs, and he also projects to be an impact starter in the next 2 seasons. They do see all 3 of his skills, improving this coming season. His offense, his defense, and his playmaking are all projected to improve in the next 2 seasons. His top areas of growth this past season, according to their model, were in the mid-range. Of course, we saw that very evidently. Defensive rebounding, he got even better. Working in isolation, his pick and drive and his drives to the basket. The projected areas of improvement they see for him are the pull-up 3 next season, the right corner 3, fast break scoring, the catch and shoot 3, the fast break scoring. I already mentioned that, and then the pick and drive in the mid-range. He could actually get better on those 2 areas as well. And they have a cool thing where basically they look at an athlete's skill set and they say, where else, if that player wasn't with their current team, where else? What are the next 5 teams that would best suit that athlete in terms of adding them to their team? Those teams, and these are the top 5 teams that would fit with Dejante if he wasn't with the Spurs. The Toronto Raptors, the Trailblazers, the Bucks, the Thunder, and the Rockets. So I know that's a lot of information, Mike. Take whatever you want from that information.
I mean, it's pretty interesting. The one thing that kind of threw me was the Murray Samanic combo, just because I guess I didn't take enough note of that and then see how they play together. The Keldon one for sure makes a lot of sense to me. I feel like he's about to get to, I feel like he's almost there, and last season was about him getting back after the injury and needing that time and getting back to where he had been, I guess. And now I think this season is kind of like one of those seasons where we might be able to see a little bit more. If he's able to get that 3-point shot and hit that with some regularity, I think that's changes a lot for him, because then that makes him kind of a dual threat where he can, drive, or he can pull up and shoot that 3, kind of what we see out of like Chris Paul sometimes, a lot, especially in the finals. And that'd be really cool to see from him. Fast break scoring as well. I mean, if he can, it's really going to be like decision making, and he seems to have done a pretty good job of that. And those are just areas that I think are kind of natural improvement areas for him, especially in the position he plays. The whole team fit thing is really interesting to me, because I can totally see Raptors and the style they play. Bucks having another long limbed defender that can also get some offense and move the ball around totally makes sense to me. So it's definitely interesting, and it's another player I'm really looking forward to seeing. That it seems like this next year is going to be kind of like the next step for him. We're going to see exactly what kind of player he can become.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, one interesting thing there is like, it says that he played like a starter of the production he brought this past year. He did that. But then the next 2 seasons, they see him more so as an impact starter. So I think that's interesting because, again, when we go back to that rumor about the trade, well, then again, like kind of like what I was saying was like, we don't know exactly if there's a current Spurs player who's projected to be an all-star out of the group that they have right now. And so, again, if you see that and you see in 2 years, he's just going to be an impact starter again, maybe, again, you might want to look if you're the organization at moving if that's the case. And just kind of what you just said there, is I saw a lot of those growth areas as well this past year. And then, of course, we know that, a big thing that they focus on in terms of his development is going to be that 3-point shot. And so that's why we see the pull-up 3, the catch-and-shoot 3, and then also, getting out on the break and things like that. So, yeah, those are very interesting. And, again, just to see those team fits, who knows if, we see more trade rumors, maybe some of those teams get involved knowing that, that they fit Dejounte's skill set best. All right, let's move on to our next player here, and this is Derrick White. One thing I want to say, though, there's another model thing that they have called the system versus star player model. And so what it does is basically if they code you as a system player, it means that your reliance on you rely on the team style of play to get a lot of your production. Whereas a star player, that means that the team adapts to your skill set is what they define it as. And so whenever you look let's just say you look at DeMar DeRozan, we see more so they code him as a star player because, a lot of the team adapts to his skill set. And, and for the rest of the Spurs players we're going to talk about, they often that system, kind of projection. But what's interesting is Derrick White, who we're moving on to next, actually showed flashes. When you look at his data for this past season, aside from DeMar DeRozan, he was the only other Spur who it didn't just say system, type of player. It actually said, he shows flashes of playing like a star player, where basically the Spurs team in certain games, their team adapted to his skill set. And so his best combinations, I'm not going to mention it does say Trey Lyles, but we didn't see him play too much this past season. He's probably going to be gone from the team. But he fits well alongside Jacka Pearl, and also Samanic comes out on playing well against Derrick White as well. They basically say that last season, even though he was hurt, Derrick played like an impact starter already this past season, and he is projected to play like a starter in the next 2 years. They see him making improvement in his playmaking and defense, are projected to grow the most this coming season. His top areas of growth this past season where he really improved were in the pick and drive, the pick and roll, the right 3-pointer, the drive to the basket, isolation, and center 3-pointer. The areas where they see him improving even more next season are steals, the center 3-point line, pick and roll, pull-up 3-pointers, putbacks, fast break scoring, and drive to the basket. And if Derrick wasn't with the Spurs, they see, and again, this is interesting because his name was in trade rumors, they see that the top 5 fits for him in terms of adding his skill set would be the Boston Celtics, the Chicago Bulls, the Memphis Grizzlies, the Kings, and the Suns. So again, that's a lot of information there. Take whatever you want from that.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, I think it kind of makes the point where it's just a shame that he didn't get to play a full season because he did play like so much better. I mean, he made a leap in like year 4 for him, and I mean his points were up. I mean, he averaged a block per game. So for like a point guard or just any kind of guard, a block a game is a pretty good number right there. And so I just think that it's one of those things. Next year, I think we're going to get to see a lot more of him. And I mean, I think we started to see the defense grow a little bit last year. A lot of people think he is the Spurs' best defender already. And so if that continues to improve, for him to become kind of a lockdown type of guy on the perimeter would be big, especially for the Spurs who have had trouble on the perimeter and stopping the 3-point shot and things like that. So, it's another one where this year was kind of get to show, or he didn't get to really show enough. But if you actually take a deeper dive into when he did play, which is I think like 37 games, everything looked good.
Yeah, and so I think what you just mentioned there at the beginning was the biggest, hindrance is just, one thing that Prophet X also does is they look at injuries, and so almost every Spurs player looks like, they don't have any injury issues, but Derrick is one of the only players who has the concerning part because of all the foot injuries he's had over the last few years, and so I think that's the biggest hindrance for him is that if he doesn't make this growth, it's because, again, he's dealing with injuries, and so that's something to watch is hopefully that he has a good, healthy season so he can actually, continue out there on the court because he continues to have different lower leg injuries these last few years, so hopefully, Derrick can really improve there in that area. And so, yeah, I agree with you too. On a lot of things you said there, and the areas that he made development and growth, and again, just seeing him, it would be good to see what he does for an entire full season, especially even if DeMar DeRozan leaves, to see him become even more of a playmaker and see where his skill set improves even more in that area of the floor. All right, the next starter let's move on to is Keldon Johnson. They have as his best teammate combinations last season were Keldon and Rudy Gay, Keldon and Dejante Murray, and then Keldon and Derrick White, which are two players that are also starters with him. This past season, he did play like a starter according to the production he brought, according to their model, and he also projects to be a starter in the next 2 seasons. So they do see him being a starter on the next 2 years. He's projected to improve on offense, defense, and playmaking in the next 2 years. His biggest areas of growth this past season, according to their model, were defensive rebounding, driving to the basket, fast break scoring, offensive rebounding, putbacks, pick and roll, and mid range. His areas of improvement is coming off in the next 2 years are in defensive rebounding, fast break scoring, drive to the basket, offensive rebounding, putbacks, and pick and roll. And if he wasn't with the Spurs, the best teams they think would fit his skill set would be the Denver Nuggets, the Clippers, the Cavaliers, the Suns, and the 76ers. What do you want to say about Keldon?
I just think it's interesting where they talked about so much, like, that, the top growth areas. I mean, it just lists so many things, but then where they see projected improvement, they see his, to me, that tells me a lot about his potential, where they see so much more growth there. And it seems like you could call this year kind of a breakout year, but, it's not like he was playing behind so many players, and he was, not like a first, second, or probably even third option. So for him to go and get what he got was pretty big. And so I think it just shows how much growth is still there for him, and he's still very young. So I think that's the player right now that Spurs fans are probably most excited about.
Yeah, exactly. And again, I didn't see it right there in the projected improvement areas. Of course, the shooting is going to be an issue because, that's one of the areas where defenses really kind of figured him out a lot of times, where they would kind of back off of him and leave him open for those wide open threes if he didn't have the ball in his hands. And so, I'm interested to see if maybe the Spurs give him, again, more opportunity to be on the ball and kind of try to create for himself or others rather than just keeping him out there on the three-point line in the event that he doesn't have the ball in his hands. So I think that's where a lot of their model comes from, is maybe they see an improved, just more so ball handling and his arsenal coming forward in this next season. All right, the last player we want to discuss is last starter who's expected to return is Jacka Pearl. And again, some of these combinations are a little bit different because the players didn't get a lot of minutes. So the best team fits for him were Pirtle and Gorgie Jang, according to their model, Pirtle and Rudy Gay, and then Pirtle and Derrick White. He played, according to their model, he did play like a starter this past season with the production. However, because he is getting older, I think he's going to be 26 coming into this next year, they do project his production to go down. So again, this is just a model. This doesn't mean it's going to happen, but they do see, because of his age, and because, he doesn't have a lot of areas to really grow in terms of his offensive skill set, I would say. He actually projects to be more like a bench player according to their data and their model in the next 2 years. So that'll be something interesting to watch. His top growth areas he made this past season were in offensive rebounding, blocks, putbacks, defensive rebounds, steals, fast break scoring in the mid range with those long jump hooks that he takes. His projected improvement areas, in the event that he were to add any 3-point shot, that would obviously make a remarkable improvement for him. Steals, isolation scoring, fast break scoring, and offensive rebounding. If Pirtle wasn't with the Spurs, his next best 5 teams that would fit his skill set would be the Miami Heat, the Rockets, the Magic, the Cavaliers, and the Hawks. So what do you want to say about Pirtle?
Yeah, it's just one of those things that he's going to be entering his 6th season. But if you look at it, he averaged career highs in points, rebounds, blocks, assists, just about everything. He was, it was a career year for him. But again, age plays a factor for sure. And it's like you said, you don't know how much, what his ceiling is at this point. I'm not sure. I don't see him becoming a 3-point shooter. So
yeah, me too.
I don't see that as part of his game. He just doesn't seem comfortable out there. So he'll be one to watch for sure, because he was another player again that they just recently. I think they just extended him last year, right?
Yeah, this past offseason.
Yeah, so that'll be interesting, especially because a lot of the players that have been rumored have been kind of like 4 or 5 type players that the Spurs could target.
Yeah, for sure. So again, it was just again, those are just models. They're not. It doesn't mean that the players are all going to do these things in these next years. Whether they could go beyond these models and end up being maybe making that big leap forward for them, or they could even not play as well, and so maybe they don't even hit those marks. So again, these are just models. It's something we just want to discuss. Looking at some of the different features that ProfitX provides if you do sign up for an account with them. And again, it is the off season. There's not a lot going on with the Spurs right now. So aside from those two things that we discussed at the beginning of the episode. So don't forget to visit projectspurs.com. The draft is coming up here on July 29th, and Benjamin Bornstein is getting you prepared. So he continues to provide these write up these prospect watches, and his latest one was on Kessler Edwards by Ben Bornstein. I've also been doing weekly free agent pieces of the upcoming Spurs free agents. So the first one I did was 2 weeks ago on DeMar DeRozan. This last one, this current week, was on Rudy Gay, and they just tell you basically how the player played this past season, and then they also give some contract projections and whether or not the Spurs should bring that player back. And then also I've continued to update our 2021 draft prospects board, and again on there you can see exactly where draft picks are projected to go, and I highlight exactly if they're going to end up at 12th or 41st, which are the two picks for the Spurs if they're projected to end up there on different mock drafts. I also have some different stats that I've added to the board, and one of the cool ones that I looked at was I looked at what last year out of last year's free agent class, not free agent, a rookie class that came in. How well did they shoot from their college or international three compared to how they ended up in the NBA? And I saw that it was about a 1 to 5% drop basically. So that's basically what I make. I make a projection on their shooting from currently with their college team or international team, and then see exactly where it projects to end up at the NBA level. And then we also have any players that either interviewed with the Spurs or worked out for the Spurs pre-draft. We're making sure to note that on that draft prospect board. So make sure you check that out if you get a chance. All right, thanks again to Mike for joining me here on the Spurscast and for mixing and producing this episode. From all of us at Project Spurs, stay safe and have a great day.